Hello everyone, welcome to Prasad's Academy. In our last session, we discussed how to improve our English for our competitive examinations, and we also discussed the part of speech and its types. So in this particular session, we are going to discuss how to identify subject, verb and object in the sentence. So every sentence will have a verb, will have a subject and will have an object, but how to identify it is our task. So whenever we ask in the class what is subject, we get only one answer, that is subject is a doer. Subject is a doer. But this definition is correct or not? If you ask me, this is correct also, this is false also. How? Let me give you few examples to discuss how subject being a doer is correct and even it is a false. So I'm just taking one example over here. Example, Sunil plays football. So everyone know him, right? Sunil Chetri, he is a footballer. So Sunil plays football. What is the subject over here? Who is the doer here? What is the meaning of the word doer? So if you ask me who is the doer here, Sunil is the doer. What he is doing? He is playing. What he is playing? He is playing football. So doer is the Sunil over here and it is the subject. So according to this definition, this example is correct. So I'm just taking another example here. Football is played by Sunil. Football is played by Sunil. So, football is the subject or Sunil is the subject over here. If you ask me here, verb is played, right? So, played is the verb over here. Who is the doer? Doer is the Sunil. And if we take this as a subject, it is wrong. So, doer is not the subject over here. Football is the subject in this particular example. Here, football is the subject. So, by this, we got to know that doer is not always a subject in the sentence. And I am taking one more example. The same example I am taking with a slight difference. Sunil is a footballer. So this is the another example. Sunil is a footballer and Sunil is the subject here. So Sunil is a footballer, Sunil is a doctor, Sunil is a teacher, Sunil is tall, Sunil is short, Sunil is smart. We can take as many examples we want, but Sunil is a subject here, but he is not doing anything over here. So in all these examples, we don't find any doing words or any action words here, right? So one thing we have to understand, if no action is happening, then from where doer will come, right? So this is just a statement. So from this we got to know that the subject cannot be always a doer. So this is just a statement. Here we don't find any doers over here. So from this we got to know that subject is not always a doer. Yes, it is a doer in few situations. So let's discuss everything in detail. Now, our main agenda is to know how to identify subject, verb and object in the sentence. The very first rule is identify the verb. So, we have to identify the verb first. Fine, we have to identify the verb first. But how to identify the verb? So, here I am taking few examples. Ram drives car. Ram ate my cake. Ram plays with dog. Ram teaches English. So I have taken few examples to explain you how we have to identify the verb. So all these represents the verb, that is drives, ate, plays, teaches. Ram drives car. So drives is a verb here. Ram eat my cake. Eat is a verb here. Ram plays with the dog. So play is a verb. Ram teaches English. So teaches is a verb over here. So all these represents the verb, that is the action words, right? So the logic what we have here is the words which represents in three forms, that is V1, V2 and V3. That is, for example, go, went, gone. So went is the V2 form of go and gone is the V3 form of go. So then we consider go as a verb. So hope you are understanding it. I'm just taking one more example. Come, came, come. So came is the V2 form of come. Come is the V2 form of V3 form of V1. One more example I am taking. Drink, drank, drunk. So go is a verb, come is a verb, drink is a verb, because we can represent it in three forms, that is V1, V2 and V3. So from this we got to know the verbs which takes three forms and we call it as a verb. So how to identify it? It is very simple, right? So see, so if we just observe with these examples, Ram drives car and drive is a verb. How we identified? We can represent in three forms, that is drive, drove, driven. And if you just observe with it, eat, ate, eaten, place, play, played, played, teach, taught, taught. So we can represent it, or we can form in all three forms, and hence we concluded that these all are the verbs. So this is how we have to identify the verb. So can we make, observe here, can we make Ram or car in different forms? Just Ram, rammed, ramming? No, never, right? And car, carring, carred. We cannot make into a different forms, and hence we cannot call car or ram as a verb, and we can call, or we can consider drives, eat, plays, teaches as our verb. So I'm just taking one more example over here. Sunil plays football. So Sunil plays football. Which is verb over here? Plays is a verb because it is making in all three forms. Play, played, played. We can make in all three forms, and hence we consider play is a verb. So moving towards the next, the very first rule is we have to identify the verb. And how to identify the verb? It should be an action word, or we should make a word in all the three forms, that is V1, V2, V3. If we can make in all the three forms, that is V1, V2, V3, we can consider that as our verb. So moving towards the next slide, and the next rule is we have to identify the subject next. So once we are done with identifying the verb, the next task is to identify the subject. But how to identify the subject is our task. I will explain you each and every way to identify the subject here. It helps you to identify in each and every sentence, irrespective of whether it is a short sentence or the long sentence. No need to worry. So here the very first point is active is equal to subject is equal to doer, and the next what we have here is passive is equal to subject is equal to receiver. What is this? Here no need to know what is active voice or what is passive voice, the meaning of it, examples and its usage, no need to know. Here we should know first to identify whether the statement is in active voice or passive voice. The very first thing what we have to do is we have to identify whether the statement is in active voice or passive voice. But how we are going to identify whether the statement is in active or the passive? It's very simple. If it is a passive, it holds B plus V3 form. Okay. If it is a passive, it holds B plus V3 form. So here B is also a verb. And let's discuss the different forms of be here. Is, am, are, be, was, were, been. So all these are the forms of be. Usually we will be getting one verb in each form, right? Like go is a V1 and went is V2 and gone is V3. But here in V1 itself we are getting many things. So here if you just observe, we have two more forms, that is V4 and V5. V4 is nothing but ing form and V5 is nothing but we have V1 and V5 now, but in earlier cases like we didn't add V5, it was just the V1. So here V1 and V5 is the same with a slight difference. V1 is used with the plural and V5 is used with the singular. So if you just take the same example for V4, it will become going, ing form, right? And for V5 it will become goes. So this is very simple, right? So the same way is, am is used for the singular and are is used for the plural and be is used in the subjective mode. Subjective mode. Let me give you an example like he is sleeping, I am sleeping, they are sleeping, Madhuri Dixit will be performing in IFA. So this is what I said, it is used in the subjective mode. And he was sleeping, it is used with the singular and were is used with the plural. So they were sleeping and been is used like this. He has been sleeping for 10 hours. So this is the forms of be. The very simple, how to identify whether the statement is in passive. If it is in be plus V3, we consider that the statement or the verb is in passive. If the verb is in passive, then the subject will be our receiver. If the sentence is not in the passive voice, then definitely it will be in active voice, right? If it is in active voice, our subject will be the doer. Don't get confused. It's very simple. If it is passive, it will be in B plus V3 form. When it is in passive, receiver will be our subject. If the statement is not in the passive voice, then definitely it will be in active voice, right? So if it is in active voice, then the doer will be our subject. I will explain you with examples to make you people understand about the active and passive voice. The very first example what I am taking here is the same example. Sunil plays football. And one more example I am taking. Football is played by Sunil. So here I have taken two examples. That is, Sunil plays football and the football is played by Sunil. As we discussed, the very first thing what we have to do is we have to identify the verb. As we discussed, right? So the very first rule is we have to identify the verb. And how we are going to identify the verb? We will check whether the verb we can form in all other three forms or not. So here I will consider plays as a verb because I can make in all three forms. That is play, played, played. So plays is a verb. And played is there, we can consider this as a verb. We can just form in all three forms like play, played, played. So verb is done. And the next thing what we have to do, we have to identify the subject. How to identify the subject? The very first thing is what we have to do, we have to identify whether the subject is in active or the subject is in passive, right? The very first example, Sunil plays football. Can you find B plus V3 form? in the first example? No, right? So B means it will be anything like this. Is played, am played, are played, be played, was played, were played, or something like this. So we cannot find B plus V3 in the first example, and hence we consider it is not in the passive, then definitely it is in active voice. So if it is in active, what is the thing? Doer will be our subject. Who is the doer here? Sunil is the doer here. What he is doing? He is playing football, right? So Sunil is the doer and it is the subject. So Sunil is the subject over here. So we are done, right? So let's move on to the next example. So first we identified the verb, and the next thing what we have to do, we have to identify the subject here. So to identify the subject, we have to identify whether the thing is in active or passive voice. So here it is in passive voice because it is in B plus V3 form. So played is the V3 form of play, and is there. Is the B form, right? So is the B form. So is acts as a helping verb and played act as a main verb. I will explain you in detail about the helping verb and the main verb when we discuss the verb chapter. So here we concluded this is the passive voice. So when the statement is in passive, then the receiver will be our subject. So Sunil is the doer here. So who is the receiver? What he is doing is the receiver here. So football is the receiver and football is the subject in this particular example. So we are done. How to identify the subject. Moving towards the next. Next we have to identify the object. First you are going to identify the verb, and then next you have to identify the subject, and next you have to identify the object. So how to identify the object? The very first thing what you have to do is identify the object in active voice with the help of what and whom. So what this particular thing is telling. So if the statement is in active voice, then how we are going to identify the object is, I am just taking example. Same example I am taking. Sunil plays football. So identify the object in active voice. This is very important one. If the statement is in active, you can identify the object in this way with the help of what and whom. But how we are going to say whether the thing is object or subject? So Sunil plays football. So this is the example what I have taken. So can I replace football with what or whom? Can I replace? Yes, I can replace football with what? Just pronounce and check. Say subject and verb and use what or whom to check whether the thing is object or not. See here, Sunil plays what? So Sunil plays what? He plays football. So we can replace football with the what, right? So we can consider football as our object. So this is the one way to identify the object. We can use this if the statement is in active voice. So this is the very easy one, right? So very simple. You should not be confused. One more example I am taking here. Ram teaches what? So Ram teaches English. So this is the example. This is the another example. So Ram teaches what? So we can replace what with English. So we got to know that English is the object over here. So teach is the verb, Ram is the subject, and English is our object. One more example I am taking here. Anand likes Aarti. And here we cannot replace what, right? Anand likes what? Anand likes Aarti? No, we cannot replace with what? But we can replace with whom? Anand likes whom? Anand likes Aarti. We can replace with whom, right? So Aarti is the object here. So this is the first rule, to identify the object. And one more thing I have to explain you, like we add S or ES or IES to the noun to make it a plural. For example, bag, bags. So bag is a noun. I added S to make it a plural. Cat, cats. Dog, dogs. So the same way, S or ES or IES we add to verb to make it a singular, not a plural. See here, go, goes. So go is a verb. I added ES to make a verb singular here. So go is a plural and goes is a singular over here. So this is the very important thing you have to know. So S, ES, IES we added to noun to make a noun plural, and S, ES, IES we had to verb to make a verb singular. So this is the very important point you have to remember. So moving towards the next, identifying the object. So the very first rule is, if it is in active, it is very easy. We will just check with the what and whom. If we can replace what and whom in the place of object, then definitely that will be a object. And the next thing is, subject or object is equal to noun or pronoun. What is this? Subject or object is equal to noun or pronoun. So if you ask me what is this, I am just taking one more example. It is very simple. In the sentence, both the subject and object will be either noun or pronoun. If we want, we can check with the example. Sunil plays football. So Sunil is a subject, we are done, right? And plays is a verb and it is done. Football, football is the object. Check. Subject is Sunil, Sunil is the noun and it is correct. Football, football is the object and football is also noun. So this is very simple. In the sentence, both the subjects and objects should be either noun or pronoun. So this is the second rule. Moving towards the next one. Preposition is equal to object. What are the prepositions? Prepositions are on, in, at, by, with, etc. So it is used with a noun or pronoun to show the relation or state of something, right? So here, after preposition, it should be followed by noun or pronoun, making it a object of pronoun. Very simple. Let me take one example. The same example I am taking again, because you won't be confused, right? Sunil plays football for India. So, if you just observe, Sunil is a subject, plays is a verb, football is object. And we discussed object should be a noun or pronoun. It is a noun and it is correct, right? And the one more thing is, preposition should be always followed by noun or pronoun, making it a object of pronoun. So, for is a pronoun followed by India. What is India? India is a noun, right? So, India becomes an object, making it object of pronoun. So, what is for here? For is the preposition. So, for is the preposition and the preposition is followed by noun and the noun is object, making a object of preposition. So this is what I was explaining in the third point. So when the object is following the preposition, it forms the object of preposition. And one more example I am taking. Sunil teaches English at Byju's. So Sunil is subject, teaches is verb, English is object, at is a preposition and it is followed by Byju's. Byju's is a name of an institute and that becomes object here, making it object of preposition. Very simple, right? In English, every preposition is followed by noun or pronoun, making it an object of pronoun. Very important note you have to remember. So to identify the object, the very first rule what we saw over here to identify the object is, if the statement is in active voice, with the help of what and whom we can identify the object. But you did not identify if the subject is, or if the statement is not in the active state, how we are going to identify the object. So I am explaining you with one example. Football is played by Sunil. Okay. Here played is verb, right? So what type of verb it is? How to identify whether the statement is in active voice or passive voice? It should be in B plus V3 to make it a passive, and it is in B plus V3, right? So is a form of B and played is the V3 form of play. It is in B plus V3 form and it is a active. So is becomes a helping verb here and played become a main verb here. So football is there. Football is the subject. So we just discussed here, by is the preposition, right? By is the preposition and Sunil is there. Preposition is followed by the noun and hence making the Sunil a object. So this is the another form. So preposition following an object will help you to find the object if the statement is in passive voice. This is very simple. You should not be confused. We cannot find the sentence without verb. If a verb is not there, they cannot be subject or object, right? So we cannot find verb without a subject. So it is very important. Subject, verb, object is very important. So hope you're understanding. So the very first thing what you have to do is, first you have to identify the verb. How you have to identify the verb? By just thinking or identifying the word, whether you can make the word in all the three forms, that is V1, V2, V3. Same like play, played, played. So if you can make in all the three forms, then definitely that is a verb. So this is the rule to find the verb. Okay, the first rule to find the verb, and next you have to identify the subject. How you are going to identify the subject? Very simple, active voice and passive voice. If the statement is having B plus V3 form, then it is in passive voice. Else it is in the active voice. Very simple. Else it is in the active voice. If it is in active, then subject will be our doer. If it is in passive, our subject will be a receiver. And next we came to how to identify the object. The very first thing when we are identifying the object, what we discussed is checking with the what and whom, and one condition is there. If the statement is in active, then we can check with what and whom to identify the object. So the next one, the subject and object should be either noun or pronoun, and the last one is preposition should be followed or should follow the noun or pronoun, making a object of preposition. So we are done how to identify the object, subject and verb. So in this particular slide we are going to identify the subject, verb and object in the imperative sentence. How to identify subject, verb and object in the imperative sentence? What is the meaning of the word imperative sentence? It is used to give order, advice or request. So this is what we call as imperative sentence. In imperative sentence we have a rule like how to identify whether the sentence is imperative one or not. The very first hint is it will start from the verb. It will start from the verb and it will be in V1 form only. So if the sentence is starting from verb and if the sentence is in V1 form only, then we call or we consider that as imperative sentence. And one more thing we have, subject will be there or not in the imperative sentences. So in this particular session, we are going to study how to identify subject, verb and object in the imperative sentence. So let's glance the previous session, how to identify the subject, verb and object. The very first thing is we have to identify the verb first. How to identify the verb? If the word we can make in all the three forms, that is V1, V2, V3. For example, play, played, played, then we can consider that word as a verb. So first we have to identify the verb, and that verb, how to identify the verb? If that word can make in all the three forms, then we can consider that as a verb. And next we have to identify the subject. How we have to identify the subject? The very first thing is we have to identify whether the sentence is in active voice or passive voice. How we will get to know whether the sentence is in active voice or in the passive voice? So if the sentence is having B plus V3 form, then it's like it is in the passive voice. Else it is in the active voice. Okay, so if it is in active voice, our subject will be our doer. And if it is in the passive voice, subject will be the receiver. So this is the rule to identify the subject, and then later we have to identify the object. How to identify the object? The very first thing is, if the statement or if the sentence is in active, we can identify the object with what or whom. And the next rule was every subject or object should be either noun or pronoun. And the next rule was every preposition is followed by noun or pronoun, making it object of preposition. So this is how we learned to identify the subject, verb and object. And in this session, we are going to identify the same subject, the same verb, same object, same way, but in the imperative sentence. And I said, what is imperative sentence? If it is used to give an order, advice or request, we call the sentences as an imperative sentence. For example, I have given two examples over here. Close the window. Shut your mouth. So these two are the examples we use to order somebody, right? So close the window, shut your mouth. And here, how to identify whether the sentence is in imperative or not. The very first hint what I said is, it should or it will start from the verb, and that verb will be in the V1 form, and then we consider that as a imperative sentence. And the next thing what we was discussing is subject will be there or not. The hint or the answer I am telling now only, it will be there but it will be hidden. So this is the hint to whether the subject will be there in the imperative sentences or not. So I'm just taking the first example over here. I'm telling close the window. I'm just following the same rule over here. The first thing what we have to do is we have to identify the verb. Which is verb over here? Close is the verb because we can form in close, closed, closed. So we can make in all the three forms, right? So this is a verb. So close is a verb here. So close is a verb, and the next what we have to do? We have to check whether the sentence is in active or passive. So B plus V3 form is not there in this particular example, then definitely this statement is in active. If it is in active, how to identify the object? We will check with what or whom. So close what? I can replace, right? Close what? Close the window. So we can replace, and hence we can consider window as our object, right? We are done till here. So window is our object and it is a noun also. And it is true now, right? But which is a subject here? In imperative, subject will be hidden. If we say, I'll just take one example. In the class, I will say to one student, go and close that window. So it is in active voice, right? Close the window. It is in active voice. So doer should be a subject. So as we discussed, in active, doer will be a subject, right? Who is the doer here? Doer is the listener. Who is the listener here? Student is the listener and that student will be the subject. If you observe, I'm just explaining you once again. In the classroom, I will just say to one student, close the window. So that student will be a doer, right? So the listener or the student will be the doer and that person will be a subject here and you will be hidden over here. So second person, if I say something to second person, so I am telling you. So I is the first person, you is the second person here. So here the second person will be the doer and he will be the subject and that will be hidden. Hope you are understanding this. So this is what identifying the subject, verb and object in the imperative sentence. So subject, as I told, as I gave a hint over here, it will be there but it will be hidden. The same example I'm taking over here. Another example I'm taking over here. Shut your mouth. So shut is a verb and this is active because it is not in the B plus V3 form. Because it is in active, I will check whether I can make a what or whom form. Shut what? Shut your mouth. So I can replace with the what, right? I cannot replace with whom. Shut whom? Can we? No. But I can replace with the shut what? Shut your mouth. So I can replace mouth with the what and hence mouth is our object and mouth is the noun also and it is correct. So it is done. But where is the subject over here? As I told, subject will be hidden and that will be the second person. Hope you're understanding this. So we are done with this slide and let's move on to the next point. So here let's implement all those rules to identify subject, verb and object. The very first statement what we have here is Ram played very well in the last match. So the very first thing is what we have to identify. We have to identify the verb here. So we have to identify the verb. So played is a verb because we can make in all the three forms. So play, played, played. So we can make in all the three forms and I considered played as a verb. And the next thing is it's not in the passive voice because we don't have B plus V3. It is in active. So if it is in active, doer will be a subject. So Ram is the doer here. What he is doing? He is playing, right? So doer is the subject and Ram is the subject over here. So very is there. Very well. What is well here? Well is the adverb. So well is the adverb qualifying played. Right? So well is qualifying played and hence this acts as an adverb. And very is there and very is qualifying well. So it is an adverb of degree. So you can just easily plot, right? Like what is subject, what is verb, what is adverb of degree, everything you can plot easily now. And now in is there. What is in? In is a preposition. As we discussed, preposition should be followed by the noun or pronoun. So match is there. It is noun and match becomes the object. So this is noun also, right? And it is correct now. So last is there. So last is qualifying the match. So last is qualifying the match. This is the adjective here. So, we are done plotting for the first example. Very easy now, right? So, Ram is a subject, played is verb, well is a adverb which is qualifying the verb, and very is qualifying the adverb. It is a adverb of degree, and in is a preposition. Preposition should be followed by the noun or pronoun. Match is a noun. Because it is a noun, it becomes an object, and last is there, it is qualifying the match, becoming an adjective. So, we are done, right? So, let's move on to the next slide. So, this is the second statement. Mohit plays cricket every day. So, let's plot subject, verb, object over here. So, plays is a verb because we can make in all the three forms. And this is not in the passive voice. Because it is not in the passive voice, it becomes an active. If it is in active, doer is a subject. Mohit plays cricket. Who is the doer here? Mohit is the doer and Mohit becomes the subject here. So, he is doing what? He is playing cricket. So, because how to identify the object here? If it is in active, we can just check with the what or who. Mohit plays what? We can replace with what, and hence we can make cricket as an object. But what is everyday here? So, everyday is a adverb of manner. Adverb of manner, because here it is explaining the frequency of the verb play, right? So, how many times it is happening? So, it is explaining the frequency of the verb, and this is a adverb of manner. And one more example if you take, moving towards. So, this is the third statement. So, Dev sleeps at 10 p.m. daily. So, sleep is a verb and it is not in passive voice, it is in active voice because it's not in the B plus V3 form. So, here because it is in active voice, subject will be a doer. So, who is the doer here? Dev. What he is doing? Sleeping, right? So, Dev will become a subject here. And at is there. At is the preposition. So, preposition should be followed by the noun or pronoun. So, it is followed by the 10 p.m. It is the proper noun, and here people will be confused. They will not consider 10 p.m. as a noun itself, but it is a proper noun. So, this becomes a object now. So, 10 p.m. becomes object, but what is daily? Daily is again a adverb of manner because it is explaining the frequency of the verb, right? The verb here is sleep. How many times he is sleeping is explaining this word, and this is called as adverb of manner. Moving towards the next. This is little tricky and complex. Let's plot very easily. Ram jumped the traffic light and fined by the policeman. This is the statement. So, as we discussed, the first thing what we have to do, we have to identify the verb here. So, jumped is the verb here because we can make in all the three forms, right? So, jump, jumped and jumped. We can make in all the three forms, and this is the verb. Next, we have to identify the subject. It is not in the passive voice, it is in the active voice. So, because it is in active voice, subject becomes a doer here. So, who is the doer? Ram. What he is doing? He is jumping. So, Ram is the doer and Ram is the subject here. So, the is there. Ram jumped the traffic light. So, it is the passive voice. How to identify the object? We'll check with the what or whom. Ram jumped what? We can replace with what, right? Ram jumped what? He jumped the traffic light. So, traffic light is a noun and this becomes a object now. So, we are done till here. So, and is a conjunction. What is conjunction? Conjunction means which joins the two words or the two statements. So, and is the conjunction. Find is there. Find is again a verb because we can make in all the three forms. So again, find is the verb. By is there. By is the preposition. So whenever we find preposition, it should be followed by the noun or pronoun, right? So policeman is there. It is noun and this becomes a object now. So by this it is an object of preposition. So we are done till here, right? So here we just plot everything in this particular statement. Subject, verb, object, preposition, conjunction, object of preposition, everything is done. Okay. Here if we just observe properly, we have a verb finned, right? So Ram was finned by the policeman, right? So if you just split the word before conjunction and after conjunctions, but before conjunction, Ram jumped the traffic light. So here Ram is the doer and it is in a passive voice and Ram becomes the subject. It's fine. But if you just observe after conjunction what we have, finned by the policeman. Who is finned? Ram is finned by the policeman. So here who is the doer? Definitely Ram is not the doer after the conjunction. Who will become a doer? Policeman becomes a doer in the second statement, right? So Ram will become a receiver. So Ram finned by the policeman. So policeman will become a doer and Ram will become a receiver after the conjunction. So we have to make slight difference or we have to correct it over here. So what we have to do? So we have to make a statement passive after conjunction. How we have to make a statement passive? As we discussed, to know whether the statement is in passive, it should be in B plus V3. So let's discuss all the B forms here. Is, am, are, be, was, were, been. So these are the forms of be. So we can just make B plus V3 to make a statement passive over here. So how to make? The very first thing what we have to know here is whether it is in the present tense or it is in the past tense. If it is in the present, you have to use is, am, are, be. If it is in the past tense, we should use was or were. And the next rule is we have to identify whether it is a singular or plural. So the very first thing what we have to do, we have to identify whether the statement is in the present or past. So it is in the past, right? So Ram jumped the traffic light and finned by the policeman. So it is something happened in past. So it is in past and that's why we have to use was or were. So if it is a singular, use was. If it is in plural, use were. So we are talking about Ram and we can use the singular, that is was. So, and was finned by the policeman. So now the statement is perfect. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is the last one. So let's observe properly. So the thieves of Delhi surrendered yesterday and sent to jail. So what is the verb over here? Surrendered is the verb over here. How we identified? Surrendered is a word from which we can make all the three forms, that is V1, V2, V3. So surrendered is the verb over here. Is it in a passive voice or it is in the active voice? So it is in the passive voice because B plus V3 form is not there in the statement and we consider this is in the active voice. So if it is in the active voice, the doer will be a subject. Who is the doer here? Thieves is the doer and thieves becomes a subject over here. As I discussed in the earlier classes, we should add yes, es, ies to make a noun plural, and we had the same s, es, ies to make a verb singular. So here we are talking about the noun, right? So s is added or es is added over here to make a noun plural. So this is the plural noun, but it is a noun and it is a subject over here. So of is there, it is a preposition, and after that we have a Delhi. Delhi is a noun, and this becomes a object of preposition. So we are done till today. What is yesterday? Yesterday is the adverb. So surrendered yesterday. Surrendered when? Surrendered yesterday. Yesterday is qualifying the verb surrendered. So it becomes a adverb. And is there. What is and? And is the conjunction. Sent is a verb. To is a preposition. Jail. So preposition followed by noun is a object. So we just done plotting the subject, preposition, verb, object, conjunction, everything. But here again the same problem we have. What is that? See, before conjunction, that is the thieves of Delhi surrendered yesterday. Doer is the thieves, right? But after conjunction, sent to jail is there. So here thieves will never be a doer. So here thieves of Delhi surrendered. Yes, here thieves are the doer because they are surrendering themselves. This is fine. This is subject. It's fine. But here sent to jail. Who will send the thieves to jail? Obviously police, right? So here police will become a doer and thieves will become a receiver here. So we have to make a statement in a passive. So now how to make a statement passive? The very first rule is we have to identify whether it is done in the present or it is done in the past. So B form. So B plus V3 will make a statement passive, right? So P forms as we discussed is, am, are, be, was, were, been. So these are the P forms. So now the very first thing we have to identify whether the statement is in the present or past. It happened in the past, right? So the thieves of Delhi surrendered yesterday. So it is talking about the past. So was or were can be added to make a statement passive. But which one to add? The next rule what we have to do is we have to check whether it is a singular or plural. So thieves is there. Thieves is a plural and hence we are adding were over here. So the thieves of Delhi surrendered yesterday and were sent to jail. So this is the proper correction. So we are done till here. So in this session we discussed how to identify the subject, verb and object in the imperative sentences, and we discussed the 5 examples how to plot the subject, verb and object. So in my next session I will come up with a new topic. Until then, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you and have a good day.